She panicked after I stopped loving her. My CEO wife, Candy, believed any man who married her was just after her money, so any expense I had over $100 had to be reported to her. Because I loved her, I was willing to be the man behind her success. But on the day of my car accident, she rejected my $3,000 request for surgery. Do you have any idea that $3,000 is what many people live on for a whole month? She'd said. I don't earn money just for you to leech off me. Because the surgery was delayed, my hand was left permanently disabled. Right after I got off the operating table, her first love, who had just returned to the country, posted on Facebook. The photo showed a $5 million watch. The caption read, "Some little girl is still just like when we were kids, always willing to give me the very best." He tagged Candy. I didn't throw a fit and start a huge fight like I used to. Instead, I just liked the post and commented, "That's nice. You two should be together forever." Sonny, what was the meaning of that comment you left for Evan? Candy's voice crackled over the phone. Everyone was having a great time, and because of what you said, he's been blaming himself all night. He just got back to the States. What's wrong with me giving him a gift? We grew up together. Can you please not be so blindly Geo? Before she could finish the word jealous, I cut in. Is that right? I'm sorry then. It won't happen again. There was a sudden silence on her end. Every time we fought over Evan, I would always demand an explanation from her, even though it always ended badly, and I was always the one left heartbroken after our fights. I could never stop myself from needing her to prove her loyalty the next time. This was the first time I accepted her accusations without any argument. She had no idea that this car accident had already forced me to completely reevaluate our relationship. I hung up the phone before she could respond. I had just deleted the comment when Candy called back. Her tone was much softer this time. I wasn't trying to blame you. It's just never mind. Where are you? The hospital, I said. Okay, you probably don't have money for a cab, right? I'll come pick you up. The hospital corridor was dark and unheated, and it was cold on this snowy New Year's Eve. My hands, red from the chill, tightened around my phone as a wave of irony washed over me. Aren't you curious why I'm at the hospital? I could hear Evan's voice on the other end of the line. Candy, is Sonny still mad at me? I didn't think he'd take it that way. I don't know what to do now. Can you stay with me? My voice was cold as I said her name. Candy. She had just said she was coming to get me. There was a pause on the other end. I'll send the driver to get you, she said, then hung up. Listening to the dial tone, I closed my phone and bowed my head, letting out a long sigh. Just as I expected, I was the one who was abandoned in the end. It was just like all the other times. But for some reason, I couldn't shed a single tear. I wasn't even sad. I just felt a little sorry for myself. I stood at the hospital entrance as the cold wind whipped at my only long winter coat, chilling me to the bone. A taxi driver, clearly in a hurry to get home, pulled over and rolled down his window. Need a ride home? I can take you for free, get you home for New Year's Eve dinner. I managed a small smile. Thank you, but someone's coming for me. One taxi after another passed by, but Candy's driver never showed up. She probably forgot about me again. I didn't bombard her with calls demanding she come get me right away like I used to. Instead, I just raised my hand and hailed a cab. I knew I didn't have any money on me, but I just couldn't bring myself to cause another scene with her. As the taxi reached the entrance to our gated community, the sky suddenly exploded with enormous fireworks, their brilliance lighting up half the night. I stared, stunned, and the driver explained with a smile, I heard CEO Roth's husband just got back in the country, so she booked this whole fireworks show just for him. CEO Roth's husband? I turned to look at the driver, and he nodded. Yeah, I heard he just got back today. Apparently, there was some misunderstanding involving CEO Roth and some other guy, so she spared no expense to show her loyalty. I heard each of those fireworks cost thousands of dollars, and she bought out the whole show. Can you believe it? So I was the other guy. I lowered my gaze and gave a silent, bitter smile as the driver mused to himself. Well, it's good when rich people waste money like this. At least regular folks like us get to enjoy the show. I looked out the window. Yeah, a declaration of love this grand made it hard to tell who the real Mr. Roth even was. No wonder picking me up was completely insignificant compared to making him smile. Sir? Sir? The driver's voice pulled me back to reality. He gave me an apologetic smile. You haven't paid the fare yet. Oh, I took off my diamond wedding ring and placed it on the dashboard. Keep the change. Hey, sir, this is way too much. Sir, the driver kept calling after me, but I walked into the complex without a single glance back. Just as I was about to step into our dark house, a massive burst of light erupted behind me. I turned to see sparks, even more brilliant than before, forming a giant rose that bloomed in the night sky. A formation of drones spelled out a message: love like we're young, and no matter the cost. I figured her first love, wherever he was, must be very happy. The brilliant fireworks lit up half the city, but left me standing alone in the shadows. I took a few steps forward into the area illuminated by their glow. This was the warmth my wife had created for another man. I borrowed a little of its fleeting light, clasped my hands together, and said to the fireworks in the sky, "Happy New Year, Sonny." Back in the cold, empty house, I curled up on the sofa and called my friend Leo. He answered almost immediately. "Short on cash again? How much do you need?" A pang of sadness hit me. Every time Candy had rejected one of my important financial requests, Leo had been the one to cover the cost for me. I shook my head, though he couldn't see me. "No, I was calling to ask, is the company still hiring?" There was a full 5 seconds of silence on the other end. Then, Leo's voice came through, filled with disbelief. "Are you saying you're coming back? You've finally come to your senses." "Yes," I said. Leo and I had started a company together right after college. Just as the business was really taking off, I met Candy, who was there to discuss a potential partnership. She was also the girl I'd had a crush on since my university days. That time was wonderful. Candy had a sensitive stomach and would only eat more than a few bites if I was the one who cooked. She was a terrible sleeper, but she could always fall into a deep sleep in my arms. For her, I agreed to her demand that I quit my job. Leo warned me more than once that a man should never give up his career, especially when our company was in a period of such strong growth. He repeatedly painted a picture of the company's future success, of me having a net worth in the hundreds of millions. But back then, I would just smile and say, if it's for her, I'm willing to give up everything. I signed all my shares over to Leo and dedicated myself completely to taking care of Candy. Yet, time and time again, I found myself abandoned and helpless. "Of course we're hiring." Leo's voice jumped an octave. "Are you serious about this? You're not just saying this because you're angry after a fight with her, right?" I laughed. "I swear." "Perfect. I've been wanting to open an overseas branch, and I need a trailblazer like you. You in for moving abroad together, man?" "Absolutely. This is great." "Okay, you need to take the TOEFL fast. You just need a decent score. I'll help you study. We can be out of here by next month." After hanging up, I dug out my old, dusty TOEFL prep books. I was supposed to have taken the test years ago, but then I met Candy. My English is just average, so I had to start cramming immediately. My body was still weak from the surgery, so I sat in the study, dabbing ointment on my temples as I drilled essay structures. Since my right hand was useless after the accident, I had to practice writing over and over with my left. Before I knew it, I had fallen asleep at my desk. In a state between sleep and wakefulness, I heard voices outside the door. "If I take you home, you don't think Sonny will be mad at me, do you?" It was followed by Candy's drunken voice. "Of course not. He'll just cry and beg me not to leave him." "Whoa, Candy, be careful." A sudden shout, and then the study door was thrown open, jolting me fully awake. Candy was leaning against Evan, his arm around her waist, the smell of alcohol thick in the air. Her eyes met mine as I sat at the desk. "You're back," I said, rubbing my eyes and letting out a yawn. Evan immediately let go of Candy, looking flustered. "Sonny, I'm so sorry. Candy had too much to drink. There weren't any cabs, so I—" "Oh, thanks," I said. I didn't ask where Candy's driver was. Instead, I gave a small laugh, walked over and patted his shoulder. "Your face is red from the cold. Thanks for the trouble of bringing her home." Evan stared at me, stunned. Even Candy frowned. "Sonny, what's with the passive-aggressive act?" I'm not doing anything," I replied. "Sonny, I really didn't mean for this to happen," Evan said, suddenly grabbing my arm. "If you're going to be mad at me. Please don't let this come between you and Candy." I pushed a hand warmer into Evan's hand. "Here, take this so you don't catch a cold." His words were cut off. He silently squeezed the warmer, his eyes now holding a hint of resentment as he looked at me. I turned and walked toward our bedroom. "If you don't mind, you can stay in the guest room for the night. I'm tired, so I won't keep you two company. Good night." With that, I went into the bedroom and closed the door. Outside, the two of them stood frozen in place. I had barely closed my eyes for a minute when the bedroom door opened again. "Sonny," she called out softly a few times. I was tired and didn't want to answer. "Sonny Miller, I know you're not asleep," Candy said, her voice tinged with annoyance. I forced my eyes open. "What is it?" "I sent him home," she said. "Oh, you're not letting him stay the night." Her brow furrowed. "Sonny, we grew up together. I wish you wouldn't be so jealous." "Jealous of what?" I chuckled. "It's late and it just snowed. The roads are slippery. I just thought it wasn't safe for him to drive." Candy stared at me, speechless. I turned over to go back to sleep. I felt her warm body press against my back, her breath warm on my ear. "Don't you have anything else to say?" I kept my eyes closed. "About what?" Usually at a time like this, you'd have a lot to say. I opened my eyes. She was right. Every time I saw her with another man, I would start a fight, demanding that she prove her loyalty to me. "You two grew up together. What is there for me to be jealous about?" Candy's hand on my shoulder tightened. For the first time in one of our confrontations, she was the one left speechless. As I drifted off, a hand moved onto my stomach. I flinched and quickly grabbed her hand. "I don't want to." She wrapped her arms around me. "But it's been so long." I held her hand tightly. "Are you really not curious about why I was at the hospital today?" My financial request clearly stated it was for surgery, but she hadn't once asked me how I was. She laughed. "I know, it was probably just a headache or something. How about I make it up to you right now?" "I don't want to." I pulled the covers tighter around myself. "I told you, I'm tired." In our relationship, I was always the one who had to tolerate everything. I was always the one begging her for intimacy. I had never, ever refused her. The hand on me tightened into a fist. "Sonny, you're usually the one begging me for this. Is that right?" I said. "Well, you won't have to worry about that anymore." She didn't say another word. A moment later, the bedroom door slammed shut with a loud bang, startling me just as I was about to fall asleep. When I looked back, she was already gone from the bed. After slamming the bedroom door, she left the house entirely, and a moment later, I heard the sound of her car engine starting. I didn't run after her, and I didn't send my usual string of apologetic iMessages for making her angry. Instead, I could finally lie down in peace and get a good night's sleep. Kenny didn't come home at all the next day. I didn't check up on her like I used to. Instead, I met with Leo to discuss the plan moving forward. When he heard I was getting a divorce, he was so excited he looked like he wanted to set off fireworks. "I knew you'd come around. You were never meant to be a stay-at-home husband. Having to report a $100 expense. That's insane." I just smiled. Just then, Candy called. "It's already dark out. Where are you?" I was surprised. "You're home." Usually after a fight, she'd give me the silent treatment for at least a week, waiting until I was completely worn down before she came back. As I reached my front door, the night sky suddenly lit up with brilliant fireworks. I looked up. It was the same display as last night. As I was watching, mesmerized, a Rolls-Royce pulled up in front of me, and a familiar figure stepped out. Candy was smiling at me. "Do you like it? Is this for me?" I asked. "What? Did you think I forgot about you?" She stood beside me, linking her arm in mine as we watched the sky together. I had a bit too much to drink last night, and I'd already let the driver go home for the holiday. That's why I had Evan drive me. "I hope you don't mind." "It's beautiful," I said, my eyes fixed on the fireworks. "Kenny said my name." "Sonny." I turned to her. "Yes." There was a flicker of annoyance in her eyes, but she sighed it away. "I know you're upset that I arranged that fireworks show for him, but he just got back, and after your comment, why would I be upset?" I said with a small laugh. "I got to see the fireworks you bought for him, too. So it worked out pretty well, didn't it?" "Sonny," she began, but then she just stared at me, stunned. "Anyway, thank you. This show is even better than last night's." She studied my face. "You're not angry?" "Angry about what?" "You two grew up together, and he just got back. Of course you should get him something." Kenny just stood there, completely frozen. After a moment, a flicker of what looked like guilt appeared in her usually cold eyes. She gripped my arm even tighter. "Let's go on a trip. You've been cooped up in this house for far too long." Thinking about my TOEFL prep, I shook my head. "No, thanks. I'm fine here home." The hand on my arm stiffened. "But I've already booked everything." "Then maybe you can take someone else," I suggested. "Sonny," she said, her brow furrowing, "I booked a romantic getaway. It's a custom package for couples." I looked down, watching the reflection of the fireworks blooming in her eyes. If she had told me this a few days ago, that she had planned a custom romantic trip just for us, I would have been so happy I would have hugged her. Wouldn't I? After all, I used to cherish my role as her husband, wanting the whole world to know we were together. But now I just gave a faint smile. Thank you for the thought. But I really can't go. Her face was a mask of disbelief. I gently removed her hand from my arm. It's too cold out here. We should go inside. I turned and opened the front door. But when I looked back, Candy hadn't followed me. Instead, she got back into the car, slamming the door so hard it echoed. Then she started the engine and sped away. She was always like this. Whenever we had a disagreement, she would just abandon me. Then she'd block me everywhere and wait for me to exhaust myself emotionally, only to return as if nothing happened, leaving me too drained to argue anymore. But this time, I didn't send a single message. I opened the door and went inside. Kenny didn't come home for an entire week. I didn't ask where she was. My days were spent meeting with Leo, memorizing vocabulary, and practicing my speaking skills. I officially rejoined the company, and Leo even gave me an advance on my salary. The equity transfer will take a little time, but I'll make sure you get it all back, Leo told me excitedly, filling me in on the company's growth. Our shares have gone up a lot since you got married. The more I listened, the more my heart ached for him. You've worked so hard all these years. Just as I said it, my phone buzzed with a Twitter notification from an account I had on special alert. I opened it. It was Evan. In the past, I was always obsessed with Candy's relationship with her first love overseas, because every time she traveled abroad, she would make a point to visit him. I hated the idea of them being close, but at the same time, I was morbidly curious about what they were doing. So, in a twisted way, I had set up special notifications for Evan's account. In his latest post, he was wearing sunglasses and sitting in a helicopter, his arm happily draped around someone's shoulder in a selfie. The caption read, "Who says childhood friends can't have a romantic getaway?" Even though the person next to him was wearing sunglasses and a mask, I recognized Candy instantly. I didn't call her to demand why she had taken Evan with her. I just liked the post and then turned off the special notifications for Evan's account. The moment I put my phone down, it rang. It was Candy. "I'll be home for dinner tonight." "Oh," I said, not quite understanding her. "Should I save you a plate then?" Candy's voice was strained. "Sonny, don't you know what I mean?" I didn't answer. She hung up. We never hired a housekeeper. On one hand, she claimed she could only eat my cooking. Later, that excuse morphed into her belief that hiring help would just encourage me to be lazy. When I got home, I cooked dinner for two and sent her an iMessage. "What time will you be back?" She didn't reply. I didn't wait foolishly until the middle of the night like I used to. I just ate my portion. After waiting a little longer with no word from her, I wrapped her plate in plastic and put it in the fridge. I still had vocabulary to memorize. I didn't have time for her games. It was becoming inconvenient to study at home. Anyway, I decided I'd go to the library tomorrow, so I wouldn't have to worry about her interrupting me. The next day, I went to the library. By the time I felt hungry, it was already dark outside. I suddenly realized I hadn't thought about Candy once all day. It turned out my entire world didn't have to revolve around her. Just as I was having this thought, Candy called. "You're not home. I'm at the library. What's up?" She paused for a moment before saying, "We need to talk. I'll come pick you up." She was right. We certainly did have things to talk about. I had been wanting to talk to her as well. Okay. By the time I packed up my things and went downstairs, Candy's car was already waiting at the curb. I automatically reached for the passenger side door, but a surprised voice called out from inside. "Oh, Sonny." Evan's cuff was tangled in Candy's hair. "Sorry about that," he said. Candy's hair got caught when she was reaching for a lipstick. "Don't get the wrong idea. There's nothing going on." Despite his words, the way his hand casually rested on hers and the provocative glance he shot me held no apology at all. Candy looked at me, then raised her own hand to untangle her hair. As she did, she met my eyes. Her cold gaze seemed to be searching for something, trying to read my expression. I didn't ask her why she'd brought Evan along or why he was in the passenger seat. I didn't ask for an explanation about how their hair got so tangled. I just smiled nonchalantly. "You two grew up together. What is there to misunderstand?" Then I opened the back door and got in. After I settled in with my bag, I noticed Candy watching me in the rearview mirror, her brow deeply furrowed. I had no idea what she was angry about. Was it because I wasn't making a scene and demanding she prove her innocence like I always used to? "What's wrong?" I asked. She looked like she had something to say, but swallowed it, letting out a heavy sigh instead as she started the car. "Nothing." Evan glanced at her cautiously, then shot me a displeased look in the mirror. "Should we eat out tonight?" Candy asked as she drove. Evan immediately perked up. Yeah, let's go to that old Sichuan place we used to love. I haven't been there in ages. I wonder if the old woman who runs it is still around. I was asking Sunny, Candy said flatly. I was listening to an audio lesson with my headphones in and was startled. Me? Yes. Candy met my eyes in the rearview mirror. Let's go to that steakhouse where we had our first date. How does that sound? Evan's face fell. I just shrugged. Whatever works. Candy kept looking at me, as if waiting for me to say something else. When I remained silent, she seemed to let out a quiet sigh, her grip on the steering wheel tightening with frustration. Evan gently placed his hand on her forearm and whispered, Candy, shut up. Candy snapped. I was taken aback. That was the first time I had ever heard her get angry with Evan, especially after they'd been apart for so long. Evan removed his hand. He looked up and glared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Then he suddenly clutched his head, his face twisting in pain. My head hurts so much. I saw Candy's hands hesitate on the wheel. What's wrong? Is it your old condition acting up again? Evan's frown deepened. I don't know, it just really hurts. Candy, can you please take me to the hospital? Going to the hospital meant turning around and heading in the opposite direction. The nearest one was miles away. Candy glanced at me in the rearview mirror. But we were. Candy, Evan groaned. I don't think I can take it. Candy's knuckles turned white as she gripped the steering wheel. She slammed on the brakes. Sonny, get out. It was the same old story. Between Evan and me, I was always the one left behind. Only this time, I didn't cause a scene. I just opened the door and got out. Oh, okay. Candy looked stunned. I turned to walk away, but she rolled down the window. Sonny, I looked back. She hesitated, then said, I'll be home for dinner tonight. I paused. Don't worry about it. It looks like he needs you. You two can just order takeout at the hospital. Are you jealous? She asked. No, yen suara tunasli. But for a second, I thought I saw a flash of disappointment in her eyes. I must have imagined it. If you're really set on coming home, I can order you some takeout ahead of time, I offered. She hesitated. About the finances, I've lifted the restrictions. From now on, you can spend up to $5,000 without my approval. Oh, thanks, but that's not necessary. I gave a small smile and walked away. That night, Candy didn't come home, and I didn't hear from her at all. I didn't ask. I just reviewed my study materials and went to bed. A full week went by, right through my TOEFL speaking exam, and Candy never sent me a single message. And in the whirlwind of studying, I seemed to have forgotten all about her. That is, until the day of my follow-up appointment, when I saw Evan standing at the hospital entrance. Candy wasn't with him. I offered a polite smile. Feeling better? He didn't say a word. He just walked up and shoved a piece of paper at me. I looked closely. It was a pregnancy report. Candy was 3 months pregnant. But Candy and I hadn't been intimate at all. 3 months ago, that lined up perfectly with her business trip abroad. It's ours, Evan said coldly, tilting his chin up at me. I think you know what you need to do. You know better than anyone who she'll choose between the two of us. 3 months, I murmured, looking at the report's description of a stable fetus. I let out a bitter laugh as my eyes began to sting. The report was suddenly snatched from my hand. Evan hid it behind his back, a guilty smile on his face. Oh, you're back already? Candy said, turning to face me. I looked up at her, my expression empty. Ms. Roth. I usually called her Candy. The only other time I called her Ms. Roth was when we were first negotiating our business partnership. She frowned and reached behind Evan. What are you hiding? It's nothing really, he stammered. Let me see, she insisted, snatching the report from him. She glanced at the report, then at me, and then she suddenly smiled. Is this why you're upset? I didn't say anything. For some reason, her smile seemed relieved, and her tone shifted back to its usual controlling nature. I was going to tell you later. I was afraid you'd get jealous. I won't be, I said with a smile. I've already spoken to a lawyer about the divorce. Whenever you're free, we can finalize it. Candy froze. What did you just say? I'll let you two talk, I said. I have things to do. With that, I pushed past her, hailed a cab, and left. That night, Candy came home. A single lamp was on in the living room. I had been dozing off while reading on the sofa, but the sound of the door opening woke me instantly. She stood in the doorway. I heard you were in an accident. How about I take you for another checkup tomorrow? It had been so long since my accident, and she was only just now finding out. If she had any space for me in her heart as her husband, she wouldn't be this clueless. Thank you, but that's not necessary. I have plans tomorrow. But I'll go with you, she insisted, a note of urgency in her voice. I shook my head. Still no. I turned and walked toward the bedroom. As I passed her, she reached out and grabbed my hand, holding it tighter than she ever had in our 3 years of marriage. After seeing that pregnancy report today, you really have nothing to say? I didn't know what she wanted to hear from me. What am I supposed to say? The hand holding mine trembled, and I could hear a tremor in Candy's voice as well. What about all the things you used to say? In the past, if I'd seen a report like that, I probably would have torn the house apart and screamed at her. I sighed. Would it make any difference what I said? Sonny, sensing I was about to leave, she pulled me back desperately. The pregnancy report was fake. I just wanted to make you angry. I silently pushed her hand away. I turned, pulled my medical file from a drawer, and handed it to her. But the fact that my hand will never be able to hold a pen again is real. I placed the file in her hands. When she read the most recent page, it slipped from her grasp and fell to the floor with a thud. That $3,000 I asked for the other day? It was for this, I said. My voice was calm, devoid of any anger, as if I were recounting a distant story that had happened to someone else. Because of the delay, my right hand is useless now. I'm left-handed now. See me holding my phone in my left hand, her breath hitched. She knew the delay was her fault because she had rejected my request. So this is how you've been punishing me all this time? She asked, her eyes red. I shook my head. It's in the past. Don't worry about it. A look of utter despair crossed her face. Don't worry about it was something she had always said to me. But I wasn't trying to start a fight. I genuinely meant it. I turned and closed the bedroom door. I lay in bed for a long time before I finally heard her footsteps walking away. I had my written TOEFL exam the next day, so I closed my eyes and quickly fell asleep. The following day, after my exam, I came home to find Candy waiting for me, which was rare. When she saw me, the corners of her eyes were red. Sonny, she said, her voice hoarse. She walked over and pressed her platinum credit card into my hand. From now on, spend my money however you want. I looked at the card. I remembered her telling me that this card was linked to her personal savings, her entire fortune. During the worst of our fights over Evan, she wouldn't even let me touch it. Thank you, but I don't need it, I said, placing the card back in her hand. She just stared at me, her fingers refusing to close around it. It took some effort, but I finally made her take the card. Sonny. Oh, and MS. Roth, I said, pulling a clipped stack of papers from my bag. These are all the financial requests I've submitted to you over our 3 years of marriage. Over the past 3 years, I've requested a total of $6,721.35. With interest, let's just call it $7,500. I continued. I found a job recently, so I'm paying you back. As I spoke, I placed a thick stack of $100 bills on the table next to the papers. If you're worried about the amount, you can have your accountant come and verify it. She stared, stunned. Then, like a woman possessed, she snatched the papers and began flipping through them frantically, page after page. Each one clearly listed the date, the amount, and the purpose of the request. Each one had the official stamp from her finance department. She looked through the stack over and over again, before finally clutching them in her fist, a look of despair on her face. In all this time, this is all you ever asked for? Yes. In 3 years, the total amount of money she had spent on me was less than a fraction of what she'd spent on Evan's welcome home gift. And yet, she had always been so worried I was bleeding her dry. She sank onto the sofa, looking as if all the life had been drained out of her in an instant. I sat down beside her. With her head bowed, she whispered an almost inaudible, "I'm sorry." "It's fine," I replied. I placed the divorce papers on the table in front of her. Candy looked up and froze, staring at the documents. I stood up. "You can think it over. I'll be back in 3 days." Then I turned to leave. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Oh, I rented an apartment. I'm moving out today. But isn't this your home?" Candy shot to her feet. I glanced around the room. "I suppose it was once." She froze. Her eyes darted around the room, and only then did she seem to notice that all of my belongings were gone. Her eyes welling with tears, she grabbed my arm. "How could you leave without telling me? Who said you could just walk out without saying anything?" I looked at her. "But I started packing 2 weeks ago. If you had been paying any attention at all, you wouldn't think I was trying to hide it from you." Her hand on my arm went rigid. 2 weeks ago, she had been on that romantic getaway with Evan. "Sonny," she began, her voice trembling, "there was never anything between him and me. I was just so in love with you. Everything I did was to make sure you could never leave me. I never wanted us to separate. Evan is just like a brother to me. Everything we did these past few weeks was just to make you jealous. I pried her fingers off my arm, one by one, and turned the doorknob. Sign the papers when you're ready. Otherwise, I'll see you in court. During the 3 days I stayed with Leo, Candy constantly sent me iMessages. Photos from when we first met, pictures from our wedding, snapshots of birthday gifts I'd given her. She dredged up every little piece of our past, trying to stir up my old feelings. But in 3 years, there were so few good moments to even remember. In contrast, the number of painful memories was endless. I started sending her screenshots of all our old fights, from every time she had abandoned me for Evan. Before long, my phone was flooded with her replies. Then, Kenny stopped replying. 3 days later, she gave me the signed divorce papers. I had only asked for 30% of the assets, since I had been financially dependent on her for 3 years. But she had given me 70%. She looked at me, dark circles under her eyes. I only restricted your spending because I wanted to make sure you'd always stay with me. But I was wrong. With you gone, what's the point of having all this money? I didn't refuse it. I had no feelings left for her, so I had no reason to turn down her offer. On the day I was leaving, Evan called me. Sonny, I promise I'll never get between you and Candy again. I'm begging you. Can you please talk to her for me? She's blocked me everywhere. I can't reach her at all. And she took back all the gifts she gave me. I don't even have a place to stay. You're the only one she'll listen to now. Please, just put in a good word for me. I'm standing on a street corner with nowhere to go. I sighed. I can't help you. Because I've blocked her, too. I hung up and blocked his number. Up ahead, Leo was pulling his suitcase along. He turned back and shouted, "Come on, we're going to miss our flight." I grabbed my suitcase and hurried to catch up. Coming.